do you mean fucking about? What? What do you mean what? No, I'm just... Well, don't fuck.
Now moving on to the rest of the accessories here, you'll basically see that I use the same techniques over and over again. In the case of the staff here, I appended a Z-sphere and I'm roughly matching the length of the staff to the concept, and as you were able to see more or less through the transparency, I drew in the first two Z-spheres, and the second one I actually extended all the way through in length to the top of the middle finger, just like I was telling you about earlier on, and then I created the in-between spheres so that I can stay consistent in terms of size. Now the rest of the staff building, since it's such an iconic item for him, as well as the aviator helmet or hat, as you may want to call it, I actually went through and detailed it a little bit more. So you'll see a combination of Z-spheres, extract meshes to create a couple of straps here and there, as well as some detailing by spreading and scattering a little bit of some indentations and wrinkle patterns pardon me, in a couple more of detailing so that it resembles wood. Nothing too fancy here, and I'll actually be going through and explain in bigger detail what I do with the staff later on when it comes to the detailing stage, but in any case, just so that you know. I'll also be mentioning that the hand at the extremity of the staff is iconic to him, mainly because we're talking about a journey and we're talking about a character that has made the best out of his life, and in a way it's a hand reaching out to something throughout his travels. So that's a little bit of the thought process behind the making of the staff. So I'll just sit through and let you enjoy the rest of the video, since most of the techniques that I've used here are and have been already covered. For example, here I'm just using the clay build-up brush to either take away or add a bit of mass to the staff. Also using the masking to pull out a couple of extremities that you would see on the roots of the trees or along the main body of the tree as well. So if I see anything that might be worth mentioning or worth telling you, either technically or in terms of thought process, I'll just step in and let you know. So basically, so just that you're not left in the dark completely here, what I'm doing is a passover of detail to try and get that resemblance of wood, let's put it this way, of a tree, because the staff is made of wood, obviously, as you can see. So the main striations and indentations that I did was with the DEM standard, by carving in all those deeper wrinkles and shapes that probably the body of the tree and any wooden surface has. Then I used the standard brush with the wrinkle patterning of the alpha, as well as some the strokes option, and I just basically scattered the detail across the surface as evenly as as I could basically, and then went in to break a little bit of the patterning and sculpted a couple of those details myself. Same thing goes for the straps here. It's basically the same techniques all over again. I'm just selecting a mask and extracting from that mask and then carving in. Actually, I'm not going to use this as I wasn't very pleased with the results, so I believe that I'll be going in and actually extract two sets of straps. So you basically just cross one side and then extract it, erase that selection mask, cross the other side, extract it, and then merge those two together. What's a traveler without a bag, right? Or a backpack to carry his stuff? Well, for him, I wanted to create two bags. One that he would carry on his back, and another one that would be more or less of a side pack, let's say. The backpack would carry bigger stuff like rollies and what other items that he would be carrying on his journeys, and the other one at the front would be, you know, something smaller, just to give him a little bit more of that storytelling features that went into the concept art. Again, same technique here. I'm basically appending a cube, and then I'm extracting by using some of the masking features what would be the top lid of the bag, and then I'll be using Dynamesh to even topology out so that I can then use clay build up, dam standard yet again, trim dynamic to kind of make those surfaces or those edges a little more beveled so that it doesn't look so CG or sort of 3D or whatever you want to call it. So basically same techniques as I said before, in order to block things in and then going in and actually sculpt the resemblance of the item that you're trying to create from real life. In this case, since I already had the Dynamesh feature there, I took the chance to just append by using the insert multi-mesh brushes. I just inserted two other cubes, also with the symmetry, to have those side pouches to the bag, which gives it a nice touch as well. So nothing new under the sun here. What you'll see me doing now is basically building up the rolly that goes either inside his bag or down below, which I believe I went for the second option, just because I didn't want the cylinder to be breaking up the silhouette of the character, and by having the rolly there or on top of the bag, it will be breaking up a lot of the silhouette and those initial basic shapes that I was mentioning in the previous video. So append the cylinder, turn it into a Dynamesh, and sculpt away. One thing that is worth mentioning though for both items, or every single item, or even the character, is weight. Meaning you want to sculpt things in regards to gravity and weight changes. Meaning that backpack is not simply going to be sitting there on thin air. It's actually going to be sitting on a surface, and probably it will be filled with stuff inside. So having that into mind and looking at several additional references will allow you to have that sense of, I wouldn't say just gravity, but common sense in regards to how things and objects interact and relate to one another. So just another tip and another thing to have in mind while you're probably either sketching or concepting your own characters or your own items along the way. Another great brush that you can use to create things like back straps or even cosmetic items like his straps on his feet and other objects along the way is the insert curves brush. Basically, if you just select the brush and draw the curve line along the surface, it will create a strap, and that strap is great in terms of topology. You probably don't even need to zero mesh it or even subdivide it too further down if you're creating something really simple. So that's worth mentioning. Also, another thing that might be worth mentioning is the fact that if you draw the line and then go outside the surface that you're drawing and hold down shift, it will allow you to create a perfect loop around that edge or that surface that you're creating the line. So that's great, for example, to keep consistency along with the straps that I just built for his feet. Since his feet are a big surface in him and I imagine him flying around, and since he might be a little bit sloppy flying and whatnot, it might be quite rough for him to land on some rough surfaces. So having something that isn't simply cosmetic is also, you know, well thought in terms of function, could aid a little bit of storytelling to your character. So with those big feet over there, I imagine him, you know, flying around and then when landing being all sloppy and kind of injure himself. So those are also protective items. more or less around this time, just like before, I like to start seeing things with the same level of finish, and also start thinking of another great aspect here, which is scale. Our character is going to be, you know, the same size probably of a ladybug or a firefly or those types of creatures, so everything that you put from now on the sculpt, or that I put from now on the sculpt, needs to somehow translate some of that scale, if that makes any sense. So small stitches on the bags just wouldn't do, right? I need to emphasize that scale by, for example, giving him some really flushed out and big seams and stitches, because obviously everything that he has and is wearing is, you know, somehow taken from nature and relates to that scale. So being handmade is obviously one of the greatest hints that I can give in regards to that. Now if you look closely at all those references that I've given you and I've collected from myself as well, you'll be able to notice that all these bugs even though they have this really thick and strong exoskeleton on the outside, there are certain parts in between that is not their most inner flesh, but is something very flexible that actually allows both extension and compression of the hard surface parts. So since we have all these influences from all those bugs in nature, I wanted to resemble that and have that incorporated into the design as well. And even in the concept art, in the sketch, the initial sketch, you'll be able to see that as well. So that's something that I'm going to start incorporating now by simply, again, following the same techniques that I've been following up until now, which is masking, then softening the mask or sharpening the mask depending on the effect or look that I want, and then extracting. Now the extract options that I normally tend to use is I try not to go over 0.01 something in terms of thickness. Turn off the double-sided because I don't want to be having issues with either Dynamesh or overlapping surfaces when I extract. And also I tend to, depending on the result that I want, either to be more of a hard surface or of a more fleshy type of surface, which is this case, to smooth out up to, let's say, 50 or 100 the smoothness of the extracted mesh. Now sometimes certain cuts that you might want to do in your mesh might, require different brushes in order to get them done. So right here, instead of using the regular clipping lasso brush, I was just using the trim circle one to get the cuts right into the shape that I wanted and to get the surface to look like it blended from the hard surface shell onto his skin. Another thing here is you'll see me toggle by pressing the V letter on your keyboard. You can toggle between the regular color that you're using with the material selected and basically a silhouette. It's good, a good rule of thumb to check your silhouette every now and then to see and evaluate your own design, to see if things aren't getting too busy, too complicated on every side, and to see if the design is flowing the way that you intended to, in order to have consistency throughout the entire sculpt. So that's another good thing to check. And next I'm actually gonna talk just some slight hints and a couple of things that I think about when it comes to design language and design shape and shape language and all that, by taking a screenshot of the character and bring it into Photoshop to trace a couple of lines and have some considerations about it.
I remember thinking, how can I bring a child into a world like this? How can a person grow up with all this around them?
Slowly but surely throughout the entire sculpt you'll see that not only I jump around from one part to the other, but I also try to, as I sculpt along, try to get the same level of finish throughout all the pieces that, you know, at least connect to each other. For example, the inner flesh to some of the outside exoskeleton, so I can have a little bit of consistency throughout at least the connecting parts at this stage, though it's not required obviously in your sculpt, and you want to move at a rather fast pace, but still, you know, having things be consistent throughout the design. So having things with the same level of finish and seeing how they connect to each other, even though I might change them further down the line, it's good for my analysis of my own design, let's put it this way. So that's something you might want to consider as well while you're doing your own, because sometimes if you don't have the same level of finish in things, you might get a little bit, you know, lost within your sculpt. You might save your file, come back the next day, and then look at the character and say, oh, what is it that I have to do now? Have I done that? Oh, I did that. Oh, but wait, oh, now I have to go through this part or that one, and that might throw you off and might end up, you know, taking you to leave the project aside or not finishing it. And that's something that, you know, you might want to consider. What is it that motivates you and what is it that keeps you going? So have that in mind throughout your own designs.
I get mad frustrated when I rhyme. Thinking of all them kids that try to do this for all the wrong reasons. When I rhyme, thinking of all them kids that try to do this for all the wrong reasons.
How many mics do you rip on the damn? Many money, say many, many, many. How many mics do you rip on the damn? Many money, say many, many, many. How many mics do you rip on the damn? Many money, say many, many, many. How many mics do you rip on the damn? Many money, say many, many, many.
Moving on to the evaluation of the design, like I said before, it's important to me to see that everything is working out in the silhouette of the character, so that when it comes to later stages, I don't step into my own mistakes, let's put it this way. So basically, by pressing Shift and S, you'll be able to take a screenshot of the current image directly onto ZBrush, onto ZBrush's canvas, that you can then export either as a JPEG or a PSD in order to import into or open up in Photoshop or another painting application of your choice, so that you can trace over or doodle around in order to evaluate things, or even come up with different iterations for either items on your character or proportions or whatnot. So basically what I'm considering here is contrasts, curves against straights, big versus small, busy side against a less busy side to keep visual interest. So everything that you see in nature, or actually nature, offers a great variety of contrasts. All these things that I'm saying, I'm not coming up with these on my own. These are things that come from either observing or also from, studying other artists and how they turn those visual shapes and interpret them in their own way in order to come up with different and appealing designs. So another thing that I take into consideration is the gesture line or the pose line, and that S that you see me tracing over there is one of those elements that I like to take into consideration when I'm designing my creatures or characters. So play around with your designs as well. Don't be afraid to experiment and to take things into other applications besides ZBrush to get things to work. So before moving on to the next section, which will be the detailing stage, since we have more or less most of the things roughed into place and I'm quite happy with the design so far, there are a couple of smaller elements and different things that I want to add here and there just to help aid the visual interest of the piece. So for the staff, I added kind of a smaller crystal, something that he could have found along his journey, that also relates to his self-illuminating features. The crystal obviously needs to contrast with the rest of the color, so I chose a brighter blue. And I'll also be adding a couple of things that might have grown throughout the time or his journeys, or like straps and a couple of vines that grow on trees and things like that. So basically this little section here is just a couple of smaller elements to aid on the overall visual interest of the piece, so that things, you can have a visual rest throughout some of the elements, and then your eye will get fixated on some smaller details here and there that actually bring a lot to the overall image and to the sculpt itself as well. One final note before moving on to the next step. You'll see that I'll be adding a couple of vines throughout the staff, as I said, to aid on the visual interest of the piece. And there's a really nice feature that, if you're not aware of, might help out. Since I cannot use the regular tracing plus holding shift and going over outside the surface, I'll actually have to trace the line or the curve around the staff itself. Under on the top menu under picker, there's an option called continuous Z or once Z, meaning if you choose once Z, every time you trace that curve, the curve is going to be based on the current angle of the camera. Meaning if you go outside your object and you don't notice it, by the time that you change the view, you'll notice that it's going way down into the canvas somewhere. If you, however, have the option of continuous Z, then every time that you trace the curve, it will be based on the surface that you're tracing it. So as you can see, me going over the fingers and the rounded part of the staff, by having that option is allowing me to stick the curve to the surface. So that might be something that in the future will help you. So